Hello everyone and welcome back to the All Things Property podcast, a discussion of all things property. It's your hosts James, Josh and Lucy, who's finally back on the pod.
I'm back.
She's back.
I'm really sorry everyone because
2 weeks off.
I've done 2 pods and then not been on one since, but I've had a cough. Well, I've had 2 different illnesses and I've had a cough for the last 5 weeks, so I didn't really want to ruin the other pods, which is exactly what I would have done. And the more that I try to think about not coughing, the more I do cough. So,
yeah, you did do the mortgage one. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, sorry about that, but I am back and I may cough intermittently, but not as bad
everyone
as
was
it
just
would
wondering
be.
where you'd got to, really. I
Yeah,
think.
I'm here, but
I've
I've
got
had
2 whole messages asking where you were.
What, James and Josh. But I thought, good people have stepped in, Darren and Annie.
Yeah.
Yes,
Probably
we have
would've been
had
too
some good
much.
guests on, yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, today we would like to discuss, it's a whole episode for first time buyers, just because we have had, I have had a few people approach me saying that they're in that position, and previous pods have been helpful. So I just wanted to do a full episode with a few more things which people might not really know about. So we'll touch on a few things, stamp duties, solicitors. Lucy's coughing again already. We have obviously done a full episode on mortgages, but touch on some other things we didn't cover, and just a few other little bits really. So yeah, I felt the need to do it because we try to be educational, don't we, as well as light-hearted.
We are big on it. We are, vendor education's good, but we're trying to be big on buyer education as well, which is
It's
minefield. It can be a minefield anyway for buyers.
I think as well the knowledge about investment. If you're an investor, you've generally got more of an idea as to the property market and the process. Whereas as a first-time buyer, you don't get taught about mortgages. I mean, I don't know whether it's changed, but when I was at school, we didn't get anything about how to buy a house. And I think that for a lot of first-time buyers, it's really overwhelming because even when we first bought our house, we've been in the property business for years, but you're still learning as you go in.
Well, you just never associate cost of moving.
Yeah,
you
don't.
Especially first time buyers. Okay, it's not as bad, but when you're upsizing, cost of moving, we found that out when we moved our house.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but yeah, like I say, we'll get into it. So the first section I wanted to touch on is just like I say, some things you should know as a first-time buyer. So one of them, which I think people might not really know too much about, is stamp duty, land tax. I just obviously wanted to ask you guys a few questions on this because obviously you guys
sore
have
subject for us.
purchased.
This is a
Very
really sore subject.
So
but the reason as to why it's a sore subject is because what was it 5 days or something where we got cut out? Or was it 10 days, something like that?
I don't know. We moved in on Friday, the 10th of November, 2017.
Yeah.
And by the following Saturday, stamp duty had been.
No, it was
it
they voided it for up to 250 grand, wasn't it?
So we paid what was it, like $2,000 or something, maybe less.
No, it was like 2,400 quid or something.
Yeah.
For a first time buyer, bit of money that was.
Yeah, and a friend of ours who moved into his house behind us a week later didn't pay any stamp duty because he moved in a day after it all came in. So yeah,
sore subject. But anyway,
changed,
move on to.
No, I just really wanted to just explain what it was. So for anyone that doesn't know, it's just tax, isn't it, really, for selling your house or buying a house even, or selling a house, I suppose.
It's basically tax you pay on the land when you purchase whatever's on the land. Yeah.
Because we live in the UK and tax is
everything is
everywhere. Tax.
Lovely. So yeah, that's just something that you probably probably will end up
as a
facing.
first time buyer. It's up to 425, isn't it?
Yeah, 425,000 your allowance as a first time buyer.
Does change. The thresholds do change as well. So
yeah, if your house is obviously within that as a first time buyer, the first time you won't pay any stamp duty. Obviously when you come to sell that home and proceed to buy your next one, is there another bracket on that? Is it up to 250,000?
Yeah, 250. It's currently
you still don't pay
2%. Oh no, not as a first time. Oh no, yeah, well, yeah, 250 grand now is nil. It's 0%.
So you don't pay anything
even if
on
you're
that.
a second time buyer, right? Okay.
But if
you're buying for investment, that's only for main residence.
Yeah.
So if it's buying for investment, it's your second resident, it's your second home. Not second home. You know what I'm saying though. If it's a second time,
another home,
another house, in addition to your main residence, and you basically add 3% onto the base rates for the thresholds.
Yeah,
so
it all goes
don't
up
quote me on this, but the Google website has them all on there. I think it's 250 to 0 to 250 is 0%, 250 250,001 penny or £1 is 2,425. I think it's 2% or 3%, and then it goes on. It goes on to more.
That was another thing I was going to say, because all the information, I think the best place to go and check it is obviously the Gov website, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's always changing. You can Google search it, and you'll get loads of different links come up, and obviously a lot of that stuff's out of date now because it's ever changing.
Yeah, I never quote them anyway, just because of that reason.
Exactly.
It changes. So
yeah, I think if you are going to do any research yourself, just refer to the government website. But I did want to ask with stamp duty, because I know you guys obviously, when you bought your first one and then went to proceed to buy a next one, when do you pay it? Is it your own money?
Completion.
Do you do it out of your mortgage?
So, like,
or does it come off your fees? Or?
So if you were paying it as a complete first time, let's say you bought a house for 150 grand as a first time. Let's say you're buying it as a first time buyer.
Yeah.
It's a really expensive house. You would pay it on completion out of your own money.
So you've got to remember to have that.
Upon exchange, depends obviously what you're doing. But
when we moved from our first house into our second house, obviously we got equity out of our first house, so we got the difference in the amount we bought it for to the amount we sold it for, in addition to obviously 3 years that we lived there. Yeah. So when we moved to our second house, we didn't even see it go out really as like an outgoing, because we knew it was going to come off our equity. So it just basically gets taken off your equity.
I suppose you don't really have to budget for it as a first time buyer, because as long as you're within that or under the 425,000 mark, it's not going to affect you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I suppose it's just something to bear in mind as a first time buyer, that if you are going to go over the threshold, then this is
another cost that you're going to incur. Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, like I say, that's just an idea for anyone who's potentially looking at buying. So as a first time buyer, it's probably not going to affect you, which is obviously great. So I did just want to discuss solicitors, because we have obviously spoke about them loads, especially in the mortgage episode. But I just wanted to go into a bit more detail with that, because obviously our advice was to always go with a recommended solicitor, someone you know that's good and someone you know that's not going to cause an issue.
Yeah, but I think sometimes people, I mean, the in-house mortgage thing and the in-house solicitor thing for agents, I think it's a bit outdated, a bit daunting, because they are very precious selly about that. We mention it.
Yeah,
we do.
I'm
not trying to pressurise anyone to get in it, but we mention it because we genuinely think they're good people and they do a good job. Most of the time, if an agent's sort of recommending
forcing you sometimes.
Well, if an agent's recommending like a mortgage, like a solicitor, to you, they're probably going to be good, because they're going to make they're making that agent's life easier. Like you're dealing with them all the time, so you've obviously got the people that you sort of recommend. You have obviously a good relationship with that person anyway.
Yeah, and I think in some cases, some solicitors have an added interest in a sale going through for different circumstances. I mean, we're going to get onto the new build things in a bit, so I'll probably go into that in a bit more in depth then. But like, I had one where the buyer's mum worked at a solicitor firm, so naturally she's obviously going to go with that, one because I recommended, and two because she's got somebody within that
doing an inside job.
Yeah, doing an inside job, and it went through in record
speeding
time.
It up.
So,
9 weeks that was.
Yeah, so definitely think you've got to just have free reign, and
not always going to be the cheapest though either.
No, exactly,
but,
and that's the thing. My main thing is, don't just go with somebody because they are the cheapest.
Right,
yes,
200, 300 quid.
But it makes a difference if you've got somebody that you might be paying more money, but it means that you probably, if you don't pay as much, or you're going with them because they're cheap, then you may lose out money because the sale might fall through when you're going to be out of pocket.
Well, just expect stress. If you're going to pay a cheap fee, expect stress.
We're like a broken record.
That's simple. That's literally.
We've said it so many times, but it's true. And the amount of people that potentially do go with the cheaper fees, and it backfires horribly, and it's not worth it.
Every single one, it's without a doubt every single one where
just issues.
The reasoning behind the solicitor they've chosen.
Like 200, 300 quid cheaper. Like, what are you on about? You,
it's nothing.
You know, we're paying them for like 200 plus grand.
You're not paying stamp duty now.
Exactly.
So, invest in a good solicitor.
Just a little bit
more.
And
we will definitely touch on the new build issues, because they are.
I think this is going to be a long episode, so I'm going to break it down into two, like we did with the mortgages.
Yeah.
But obviously, going back to solicitor fees, you might be able to help me with this, Luce. So, what exactly is included? Because I know they give you a breakdown, don't they, and charge for multiple things, what they do, and.
Yeah. So they'll give you a breakdown. So when, say for example, you've just had your offer accepted on a property, you would then ideally you'd have a solicitor in mind that you're going to go with anyway, and you would contact them, ask for a quote. They would then send that through to you. They do a breakdown, so they'll pop on there like anti-money laundering checks, ID checks, searches, the land registry, the title deeds. There's loads of different things that they'll break down. They all
Can also depend on what house you're buying as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I know obviously want to touch on the new
Depends
build later, but there are certain, not necessarily just as a buyer, but as a vendor as well, there are certain extra costs that you will incur depending on what type of property you've got.
Yeah.
For example, a leasehold will be more than a freehold, but also a new build will be more than don't know how to describe it, but you know, if there's a management company managing the estate, you're gonna have to. There are extra costs that incur. A for getting like a management pack, or B, the solicitor charges are extra.
Yeah. And then if you want searches, obviously most people you're always going to want searches, but we have had the odd few that haven't gone ahead with it if they're investors and they know the area, they just want it to go through quick. But so they'll then get the quote, they'll then appoint an individual solicitor. So when you'll have to provide to your agent the exact person you'll be using, their contact details, and then they'll obviously draw up the memorandum of sale. And you can have, so say for example you choose a solicitor, the vendor or who you're buying it from, they can choose the same firm, but they can't choose the same conveyancer, exact solicitor that you've got. So yeah, that would probably make it a bit more straightforward.
And I imagine that's similar with the stamp duty in the sense that you pay that on completion out of your own money, so you've got to have that ready go.
Yes,
well,
if
funds
you're a first-time
available.
buyer, so you will have to pay for your searches up front, and there might be a couple of things you might have to pay for up front. It's different with every solicitor firm.
So
Not
that is like
deal.
offer accepted, instruction,
offer accepted,
and then pay.
Yeah. And
it's
then
not. It's very rare you're gonna get a situation where it's like
a lot. It's only like probably £200, £350.
Obviously, that will come off your final bill,
Cost,
but like obviously under normal circumstances, some solicitors will pay it back, but you won't get that back if you don't proceed with the sale. You won't get that back.
Exactly.
Sorry, the purchase.
So
You won't
another
get that
thing
back.
to bear in mind.
Yeah, something to bear in mind. And then at the end, when you're near completion, you will get a completion statement, and then you'll have a balance that you need to pay.
Yep.
And then the solicitor will hold them funds on account to obviously pay for your bills. But obviously,
Exactly
if you're
right.
then buying your second home, again, your solicitor fees would come off of any equity. And if there's not equity, then you will have to pay up front.
So yeah, definitely something to bear in mind once you've got your offer accepted, to get the quote, so you know exactly what you've got to try and save for, I guess, because I imagine it's all the other costs you're going to incur buying furniture and everything. It's just little things like that you might not think about.
You do definitely need to account for them, because you look at really is when because obviously you're excited, aren't you? You're looking at the cost of the house and your mortgage. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't think about you don't think about moving costs. Sometimes, I mean, both times we did it.
We had no idea.
Fortunately, we obviously had a massive horse lorry we used to have we took all our furniture in there. We didn't pay for removals, but that's not cheap.
Do you know another thing I would say I'd recommend to first time buyers is, if you're in the process of looking for somewhere to buy, go now already before you've even put forward an offer. Start shopping around solicitors. Look round, check the reviews, get quotes, so that when
it's fast paced, isn't it?
Yeah, because when you then get an offer accepted, everybody's then under pressure to get the memorandum of sale out and get that sale started. And there's nothing worse than you thinking, "Oh God, let me just go to Google and go with the first solicitors." If you want to ensure that your sale is going to go through smoothly, do kind of the back end of the research before, when you've got the time to really sift through and make sure that you're going to work with the people that are going to work with you.
I don't know if you think this is the biggest delay, but I think that is the biggest delay. Is, you know, when I'm doing a viewing and speaking to these people, I'm saying, look, but we can get it through at a fast pace, but you need to be on it, your solicitors, make sure you got a good solicitor.
Yeah.
But the amount of times where we get to it and like a week in and we're waiting for one of the parties to send the solicitor details in.
Yeah, because
it's
that's
crazy.
another thing. When you come, you need to bear in mind as well that you'll generally probably have had this with your mortgage advisor, but when you come to appoint your solicitor, they then do their anti-money laundering checks or their ID checks, and they will need 2 forms of ID. They will need to do all them things. They'll need your bank statement. So again, try and be prepared. Get all your bank statements ready. You know, if you need to go into the bank to get them, do that. They'll need them within the last 3 months, but you know,
you need them anyway for your mortgage.
Yeah, exactly. So just have all of that prepared.
It's like you say, it's doing your homework as well, because another thing you don't really realise is like council tax. I don't think anyone really knows how much that costs, but you can go on the government website and check like prices per bandings.
Well, yeah, first time buyers, again,
that's another
straight on the first time buyer front. If you're buying, you know, depending on what house you're buying, if you're buying a first home as a first time buy, you might have an idea, because if you might be on like phase 2, but you weren't even banded for the first 6 months. We weren't.
You're
like a new
first time
build.
buy. Do you mean new build?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
I'm
a
saying if you're first time buyer buying a new build,
Yeah.
you won't be banded for the first 6 months.
No.
And actually,
and they just
first time buyer is actually irrelevant because if you ban it as a second buyer, like we weren't banded for the first 6 months of ours, we had to put
Yeah.
money aside.
Yeah.
You got and you have to.
it's a bit scary, that, isn't it? 'Cause
Well,
you
no,
don't
it
know
isn't.
what
It
you're
isn't
gonna-
because like if you're buying on a phase one, you usually have an idea. They'll give you an idea. But obviously, they can't commit to it for legal
Yeah.
reasons. But we had an idea as what our council tax would be, and we got told what the cost potential would be. But you didn't know for 6 months, and you just get a bill through the door for like X amount of quid.
Well, that's just some more money you've got to put aside, I suppose, isn't
Yeah,
it? It's
exactly.
when you're tallying up and weighing up how much everything's going to be.
Yeah.
And obviously utilities, that's always just a headache because you can't exactly quote for them because it's how much you're going to use when you're in there. So that's another thing you've got to put aside. But yeah, so that's obviously why I felt the need just to discuss a few bits which potentially may get overlooked because it is an exciting time and you do just want to get in there, get an offer done, and there's obviously a few more things to weigh up just to make sure it's actually going to be feasible. But yeah, I'm happy with that. So I just want to jump into our breakaway topic now, which as
we
I'm
haven't
sure
got one today.
well,
We were going to spin a wheel, weren't we?
well, yeah. As you can see, we've upgraded.
We have. They can't. I don't think they can see the wheel in the shop. We were going to bring the wheel in, but we haven't actually got it all ready yet. So we'll have to just pick one.
Everyone's going to be thinking, what the hell is this wheel that you are both
Yeah.
talking
Well,
about?
we'll bring it out on the next one, shall we? On
We'll
part
have to
two.
wait, won't we? Wait and see.
But yeah, so we've upgraded. We've obviously started this podcast. Was it December?
Yeah, we started out in December.
And that
our
was
first.
in-
We recorded the first episode in December. It came out in January, so we're just shy of 3 months in now.
Which is crazy.
But
'cause
this
it
is your
feels
idea,
like-
though.
Yeah.
So this is like your idea was this room, which I think is good because it's like we're in property, we're in like houses.
The
It's
feng shui is nice. though.
feng
Well,
shui.
we were
It's
sat
a
at
homely
desks
feel.
before, and obviously we're getting people on now, and a lot of people have obviously given love to the pod, and we just thought we'd upgrade because from where we came from, it feels like ages ago, but it was just our office.
Start
wasn't
from
it?
the bottom.
Started at
Now
the
we're here.
desks, then we got our own room, and when we upgraded to a new office, we got our own podcast room, and now we're just upgrading. So we just really wanted to go through the room itself and just let you know, obviously, for our future breakaway topics, we tried to lighten it up a little bit more. And yeah, we'll get the wheel on, we'll spin it, and then we'll go for a topic that it lands on. Hopefully we'll get some new topics in as well.
Yeah.
So
Got to keep thinking of them because some of the guests keep saying the same stuff.
yeah.
Got to be careful.
Why, who said the same stuff?
Well, it's just the office truths. Office truths always a good one because I think
Yeah,
you
office
can-
use is a good one, but they all have. It's obviously a very similar thing, isn't it?
Well, I think I'm going to try and veer away from property for some of them, just to make them a bit more light-hearted for the
Yeah.
listeners. Because a lot of the stuff we do talk about, obviously, we get quite in depth about it. It's quite
yeah, it's
serious.
very. You have to be very.
So obviously, we just want to
Mentally
dial it down a little
dial it
bit, let you shut off, and hopefully get some laughs in, and then come back round for more important things. But on that note, jump into section 2. So section 2, I wanted to discuss a few more things, obviously, for the first-time buyers. We have had a massive episode on mortgages already, which does cover a lot of this, but there was one thing that we didn't cover, which obviously when you get your mortgage and you're obviously searching, you're ready, you've put an offer in, how long does your mortgage offer last for? How long is it valid?
So it lasts for 6 months in most cases. And what that basically is when you go and view properties, or when you're trying to work out what kind of mortgage you can get, you'll get a mortgage in principle. So that is basically a sheet of paper to say, whoever you are, you can afford up to this amount.
At that point, you won't. So a mortgage in principle, all you have to do is basically you're on the end of the phone to someone saying how much you earn, and that's basically it, isn't it? There's nothing else
subject
to
the
it.
proof.
It's really
not,
like we could sit here and get a mortgage for X amount of pound if we wanted to. It's whatever we said.
It's the starting
But
point.
Going
isn't it?
for your mortgage offer, which is obviously you require it when you're going for extended completion for your house. It relies upon many things, doesn't it? So you're going to have bank statements. You're going to go through
payslips,
etc.
credit
for that,
file,
and obviously a credit file. Might be jumping the gun here a little bit, but on the first time buyer side, so you can get. Oh no, it's not first time buyers, is it? Isn't it just for new homes you can get the mortgage extension on, or is it mortgage extension?
No,
just
let me finish.
Oh,
so
go on, then you do your.
So obviously you get the mortgage offer is so you have the mortgage in principle, You then obviously get your offer accepted, and then that's when you start the mortgage process of applying for your mortgage. So they will book in a valuation, so it'll be an external person that will visit the property that you're going to be buying. They will then confirm that they agree to the purchase price, and that they're happy for that bank to basically lend you the money. Obviously you'll go through the other things. They'll do a thorough credit check, they'll get all of your documents. Then once you get your mortgage offer, that'll have a date on it, and ordinarily it's within 6 months that'll expire. If you get to the end of that 6 months and your sale is not completed, most cases you can extend it, but different banks offer different ones. So
I think the average time's like 45 days, isn't it?
yeah, so
and that's rate changes then. So you're subject to
No,
achieve-
no,
you're
so
not subject
that's
to rate changes on that.
not at that point. So
Okay.
it can extend. So if it extends to 45 days, you've still got the exact original offer, but you've got an extra 45 days to complete. But one I've had recently was only 2 weeks, so you can't guarantee it.
It's not long, is it, in the grand scheme of
No,
things?
it
just to
isn't.
get-
Well, it's not
And then
long
what
because
after that
you just
initial-
said, because they changed it a little bit now because of rate changes.
So
Because
after that initial 2-week extension, then you'd
You've
have
got
to
to reapply
apply for a
completely.
new mortgage,
Yeah.
new rates.
Yeah, as long as you are going with a mortgage advisor that is reputable, then you should get that through pretty quickly, because in some cases, if it's the same bank, they might be able to use the same valuation that had been done and things like that. So it's not it's not as
it's not
scary.
the end of the world, but
I think it's more the stress. I mean, I know when it happened to us and we had to reapply, and it just stressed me out, the fact of I've got to when you get your mortgage offer through, it's such a
it's a big relief.
great day, because you're kind of thinking, oh my
Yeah.
God, here we go, like this is it. And then to have to go through it all again, obviously lenders can be quite specific, different banks have got different criterias, and it's a bit frustrating. And I've generally found recently that mortgage offers that I have had that have expired with sales have been through, if somebody's buying and there's a management company or there's a lease, them sales seem to be taking a bit longer, but generally it should go through before 6 months. And if you've got good solicitors, you've not got any complications such as leases, the sales are going through in about 10 weeks. But in some cases
Should cover
it
that.
can be...
But like I said, that's the reason I wanted to talk about it. So it's just preparing people for the possibilities of what could happen. Obviously, very rare that people get their mortgage and get their mortgage offers before they've got the property itself. But if you're already 3 months into your mortgage offer and then find somewhere, then that's potentially a concern, isn't it? So that's what I wanted to talk about, especially because we will have in part 2 a full section on new builds, but with new builds that haven't even been built yet, the delays on them are just crazy, and especially if you've got your mortgage
That's why the
offer
mortgage
through.
offer and the extensions originally came in, was because of that. Because when
Just
they
being
bought help
pushed
to
back
buy,
all
when
the
they bought
time.
help to buy in, lenders thought, there's a gap here there's a gap in the market here, basically to new builds at the time were like a whole separate, obviously offering a whole separate sort of entity, weren't they, really, on especially for mortgage lenders, because that came in for that reason. They never really, to my knowledge, used to do mortgage extensions, because a 6 month mortgage offer was long enough for a normal sale to go through. But obviously you can go for like an early bird and reservation and trying to get your mortgage a little bit, then it gets pushed back 2 months.
Lucy, you mentioned obviously when they get the lender's valuation done. I did have a question about that I think people should be aware of, and that's like potentially when it comes back if it's undervalued, because there's obviously issues with that, isn't there?
So if you've bought a property or you've had an offer accepted, and in some cases you'll have people where we'll have a property that's what we're trying to say, where it's sorry.
Like derelict or something or what?
No, as in
Breakaway topic.
Not-
Me and James have got to try and guess what's going on.
not
Go again.
Insert game show music.
No, not asking price of. What's the other one?
Offers over.
Yeah, sorry, offers over. So
So you get like a bidding war type.
you could have a property where it's offers over 290 and you've offered 310 or something like that. But when the bank go to do a valuation, they might come back and say, we think this property is only worth 300,000, but the vendor has accepted your offer on that basis, and they can easily turn around and say, well, I want £310,000 for my property. And you've then got to either work out whether you go with a different lender, so start the process again, scrap that lender, go for another one, or you bridge the gap, so you then put in more funds to then cover between your mortgage and your deposit.
And that's out of your pocket.
Yeah.
So would you have to pay that? You'd have to have them funds available now
Yeah.
to pay, because they won't lend more on the mortgage because they don't think it's worth
Yeah.
what the.
Well, it's basically you're essentially going to add to your deposit.
They've done their valuation and they're not willing to pay more towards a mortgage to it, so you would have to pay the difference.
Yeah.
I don't. It kind of.
It's
I
a
mean,
hard
you'd
conversation
have had to.
that.
Yeah.
In this market, in this last year, you'd have had to have paid a bloody decent whack over the asking price for that. Buy-to-lets are the only sort of thing that are really strict on at the moment, just because of the return, and they want either some collateral or they want some sort of commitment from you as a buyer to bridge that gap. But normal at the moment, it's not really a massive
the difference
issue.
with buy-to-lets though is when someone's buying a buy-to-let, they're doing it obviously based on the investment and the opportunity. So if the yield is good, then obviously they're willing to pay a certain amount, and if the figures stack up like that, you're not really going to be that bothered about the cash amount you're putting in necessarily. Whereas when you are doing it this way round, you don't necessarily want to be out of pocket, but equally, if that's your dream house, then it's an awkward one.
Yeah.
But then you have got to then offer. You've then got to obviously ask, will the vendor accept that amount, and just.
What you've got to keep in mind about these things as well is that, like you said earlier, so when these things get valued by mortgages, like mortgage lenders, they won't just go away. They'll be on that like surveyor's record for like 6 months. So that vendor can't go out and find another buyer with a mortgage for the same price, because it's just going to come back at the same valuation. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's just a bit crazy, isn't it? Because
well, yeah, that's the way it works. When like mortgage lenders are protecting their they're protecting their investment, because a mortgage.
Because I thought you said another lender, you could obviously go with them. Wouldn't they send someone out themselves and value?
Yeah, but it's still
differently?
it still has to be a charter. It's still going to be a surveyor.
Yeah.
No, because it's still going to be a surveyor. They all do the same job and go off the same thing, so there's no point in them going out. They can't turn around and say it's worth 10 grand more.
Yeah, but people do have different opinions and different. We've had ones in the past where they haven't used any comparables, and we've appealed it, and then they've agreed with it. So it's a bit of a grey area, to be honest with you, because they're not doing the job day to day like we are. They don't, although they see the market's changing, they're mainly looking at a computer. A property is only worth obviously what someone's willing to pay for it, and in some cases they want to pay more for it than maybe somebody else thinks it's worth.
Than advised, basically.
So, like I say, it's just another educational point, because if this does happen, then you've got to look at the whole thing again, haven't you, and weigh up if it's worth the difference that you've got to pay, or potentially go with another lender and get them to revalue.
Well, it's a lot for a first-time buyer.
The actual seller
specifically, that is a lot. That's a big ask. Yeah. And if you've got 10 grand difference, that's a big bloody whack to get up front. Especially for a first-time buyer.
Well, that's it. I think you're kind of pushing yourself to your limits anyway.
Exactly.
Aren't you?
Yeah, but then in some cases, say you were going to do a 30-year mortgage, you could do a 35-year mortgage. Then you'd have more cash available. This actually
brings me on to what we want to discuss, because I know we've obviously had, I keep saying, the mortgage episode, and loads of information was discussed on there. And if you haven't, go give it a listen. But we had, when I was speaking to a colleague here, he mentioned obviously in regards to the fixed terms that you can get offered, and that's why we'd always obviously advise to speak with a mortgage advisor, because there's the potential to extend, obviously, like you say, to a 35-year mortgage. You could potentially put down, say, a smaller deposit, but I'll go on to that. But yeah, I just wanted to touch, because he mentioned that you could get like a 10-year fixed, which I thought was pretty good, but as a first-time buyer, necessarily you're probably not going to be there for 10 years, are you? So it's definitely worth speaking to them. And then obviously we learnt a lot of things when Reese came on the pod in regards to getting ready, obviously with betting, which we thought was a good point, didn't we? If you like a good bet on the weekend.
On the point of like fixing your mortgage, I mean, we did our first one for 2 years, remortgaged again for another 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we done this one for 5 years. But it's really hard to sit there and look at it like this before you've even moved into somewhere. But you have to have some sort of plan in place to say. The reason why I'm saying this, because your redemption, early redemption costs for a mortgage is like you're pushing like 4.5-5 grand. It's not a cheap thing, and it's that will be paid. If you're in that period and you move out before that, you're going to pay it unless you port your mortgage, which is a complete. Which again, go and listen to the podcast, because I'm pretty sure it's on there. But yeah, you have to think about that, because I think we paid about 2.5 grand, 2,900 or something on the first one when we
I
moved.
have no idea, but
We
also,
paid a redemption fee.
but
Yeah.
also a lot of lenders, if you stick with the same lender,
Yeah, you can
so
port
say
it
you're
over. Yeah.
with Halifax
Yeah.
and you are in a fixed mortgage for another 2 years, but you want to move, a lot of banks will let you move and come out of that mortgage as long as you enter into a new one with them and you're not changing to a different
It's just an
bank.
incentive for them to keep you as a customer,
Just all these
basically.
loads of little things that people would never know. It's just
No,
crazy,
yeah.
isn't it? They don't teach this stuff in school,
Well,
or
this is
just
it.
give you any more information on it, and then you're just expected to like go out and do it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
then, but yeah, obviously that's what we're here for. We're here for.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I also just wanted to, like I briefly just touched on, discuss deposits, because obviously myself, I'm looking to potentially buy, first time buyer. I've been saving and I've always had it in my head. It was just 10% deposit.
Yeah.
That's just like the rule of thumb that I had, and obviously you mortgage 4.5 times what you earn, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But obviously when Reece came on and we did discuss mortgages, he mentioned that you've obviously got so many more options available to you, and you could go like a 5% deposit, for example, with a 95% mortgage.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we're always just giving the advice, aren't we? Just anyone even looking to buy, but especially first time buyers, just speak with a mortgage advisor first.
Yeah.
Get
Definitely.
the figures down, see what
Worst
you
thing
can
you can
get.
do is move someone and resent it.
That's
but
it. Or
5% deposit, you know, that's your month is going to be coming out.
put yourself to
A lot
like
more.
your spending limit, and you've got no way of going on holiday or going out and enjoying obviously your freedom, even now you live by
Yeah.
yourself. And that's a massive thing. It's just doing the research, I think, and just
Yeah.
obviously getting all the information, like we say, checking the council tax banding if you can, getting an idea, setting yourself a budget. But I think a lot of people do that already, but I just wanted to try and highlight some other things that could potentially pop up, or extra fees that you're not expecting. So
Yeah, definitely speak to our advisor. Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
know your options. You can't. Knowledge is power in this.
I think as well,
subject.
there's different options. Like if you want your monthly cost down, so you, like you say, you do a 35-year one rather than a 30-year. You do the 5% deposit, so you've still got some money. And I think you've got to consider what kind of house you're buying. Are you buying a house that's going to need a new boiler in the next couple of years? Because that'll be a good few
Mhm.
£1,000. Are you going to need? Is there
Yeah.
lots of maintenance? So you need a new roof. I think as well, one thing I was going to touch on earlier, if you are worried about bills and utilities and you know how much things are going to be, check out the EPC for the property, the Energy Performance Certificate, because that details on it a banding of how efficient the property is, which will give you a better idea as to how much your bills are going to be. So
Yeah.
the higher the rating, in a sense, it's from A to, what does it go down to?
A to G, I think, isn't
A
it?
to G. So if you've got like an A, B, they're really good ratings, and your bills will be more cost effective. But
I mean, it's just things like, you know, like dual heating. Like if you got
Yeah.
like our house, we got a thermostat upstairs, and a thermostat downstairs.
Yeah.
So we could just have downstairs heating on, and we save an absolute ton on gas.
yeah,
Just because
Yeah,
it's
loads of little
mental,
tips
honestly.
and tricks like that. And like I say, in the next episode we are going to touch massively on new builds and just go through like your guys' experience, and I think we're going to get a guest on as well just to discuss what their experience is going through the first time buyer stage. But yeah, it's just all them little things, isn't it, that you can like try and get set up for.
yeah,
Just get prepared for cost of moving, because it isn't. It's not that it's expensive or it's not necessarily cheap, but it's just you need to budget for these things.
and
Especially definitely as a first time buyer is the most important.
but you do less as well. I feel like, you know, when you're younger and you don't own a house and you're doing stuff in the week, you're doing stuff in the evening, you don't realise how much of your disposable income that
You're
are just spending day after day.
It's scary.
Yeah, whereas when you move out, I mean, everyone's different, but I think just bear that in mind as well. Your costs, your outlay of your monthly activities aren't going to be as much, because naturally you're going to be in your house and things like that. So I think there's a lot of scaremongering for first-time buyers as to your bills and
what you need to save.
Yeah, what you
and
need
You
to
putting
start.
save.
away
This is
each
the
month
point. That's the
and-
point when you go to start going to work and bragging to your work colleagues about how much money you save. You know, I shop at Aldi, you save loads. You know, that sort of stuff.
why, who says that?
Well, that's what you do, isn't it?
It's like when people buy a
Like,
house,
you know,
and then they stop
your
buying.
weekly shop, you're trying to get down to as cheap as you can, because
yeah.
you think it's like an
Yeah.
achievement.
Yeah, it is. Trying to get it under
What
30
do your electricity bill come out this month? If you're cheaper, you've won the competition.
It's someone buys
Funny.
a house and then they never buy food at work anymore. They're always coming in with like food they've made.
Yeah.
I think the worst thing is them
Yeah.
smart meters. You know,
Oh
like
yeah,
when-
yeah.
we haven't got
My
one,
sister's
What,
got
but-
one.
because you can constantly see
Yeah, 'cause
like
you can
what
Mate,
see.
you put the
charge.
flicking the kettle on, 10p.
Oh my
Like-
god.
Yeah, someone at work does that. They turn it off by the mains because
Yeah.
it's charging
Put
them
the
when
kettle on
mains is
again.
on for the kettle when you're not using it. Yeah, like I say, it's little things. And I think another bit of advice is obviously on the viewing, just ask as many questions as you can.
Yeah.
Because obviously if you go there, you're buzzing, you love it, and you're kind of forgetting about all that other stuff, aren't you? You're not asking about like key questions that you potentially want to know that can factor in later on. But yeah, lovely. I'm happy with that. Have you guys got anything else that you want to add or?
Don't think so.
No, I don't think so, no.
Happy? Well, like I say,
gifted deposits.
Oh,
I'm sure that was the point we were still going to talk about.
I did mention
Gifted
that,
deposits. Basically, very simple. You have to declare if they're gifted or not and who they're gifted from. It will come up on your email checks, and basically, if you've got, so let's say you're getting 10 grand from your parents, you have to declare that as that. And when you come to pay that to your, as obviously the deposit to your solicitor, you have to just show that it's coming to your account from the same person that you said it was going to come. It's coming from. So that this basically is really that simple.
The person who's gifting it has to fill out a form,
correct,
and they have to provide a bank statement.
Yep.
And also, if in the last, this is obviously from when we bought, the kind of general thing, but if you'd had somebody that had transferred you money within the last 6 months, and you hadn't declared that it was gifted, then that would be questioned, because if it's
through the anti-money laundering.
Yeah, because then that is somebody gifting you a deposit. Even though it's gone into your bank account, you're going to pay it from your bank account. I was just about
to ask, could they not just transfer it, say, a few months before, and then it's like you've got proof of it?
No, you can have it like a year before, and you can have it offset in like a separate account, or you can have it in your account if you wanted to. It doesn't matter, but just like
good bit of information that is.
Yeah, like when you first do it, you just like Lou said, you have to sign to say that they're doing that, and they also have to sign something to say they're doing that, to say what the amount is, where it's coming from. It's simply down just anti-money laundering. That's all it is, literally.
Yeah, that's good to know though, because like I say, a lot of people do get help with deposit, don't they? And if they transfer that over and people didn't know that, it could be a potential delay, which once again could fall an issue with mortgage and extension and everything. So
it can cause an issue with mortgage.
Yeah,
genuinely, so just make sure that's right.
Lovely stuff. Well, like I say, the next episodes we are going to discuss in a bit more detail in regards to new builds, early birds, obviously what's included, benefits of that.
Yep.
And we are going to get a guest on as well, and we'll break out the wheel for
break out the wheel.
So yeah, I just want to thank everyone for listening. And like I say, if you do have any questions, if you've got any experiences you want to share in regards to your first time purchase or any, good or bad, ideally bad or maybe, so we can talk about it and obviously make other people aware. But yeah, any questions, just get in contact through the email. It's info@allthingsproperty.co.uk, and we'll see you
next one.